Doug, thank you for being here. I'm excited to chat with you.
Great to be here, Jesse. It's fun to talk about writing.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you write about.
Right. I am professionally a lawyer turned peacemaker, which sounds like an oxymoron, but I actually was a trial lawyer for 22 years and then went back to school and got my master's degree in peacemaking and conflict studies. And in 2000, left the practice of law to become a mediator and a peacemaker. And I teach graduate school and spread the word about all these different ideas that I've developed over the years about human conflict.
Awesome. And is that what you write about as well? Kind of
peacemaking? I write about my first book. I've written 4 books. My first book, Peacemaking, Practicing at the Intersection of Law and Human Conflict, that's a mouthful, is a textbook that I wrote because if there isn't one out there, you got to write one, right? For teaching law students that law is much more than, or human conflict is much more than just the abstraction of the law, that people come to us with serious problems. And if we don't really understand deeply what those problems are, then we can't really help them. And then my second book, I co-wrote with a colleague of mine called Sex, Politics, and Religion at the Office. This was before diversity was a big deal. And we were talking about how, as a leader, you have to build diverse teams and how do you manage the conflict that arises out of that. My third book was a critique of the International Diplomatic Corps and their peacemaking efforts called Elusive Peace. And I basically looked at how the history of peacemaking in the world, in the modern world, since the Treaty of Westphalia, and just explained how the Foreign Service, the World Foreign Service people they don't know how to make peace. And they are using 17th century technologies to solve 21st century problems, which is why they fail all the time. And then finally, my fourth book, De-Escalate, How to Calm an Angry Person in 90 Seconds or Less, in 2017, drew on some insights and research and field experience that I'd been doing in maximum security prisons about how to calm any angry person in 90 seconds or less. And that one did really well. It's an Amazon bestseller. It's still selling well. So that was exciting.
Congratulations. You said that title and I was like, I need this. I don't work in prisons, but I need to know this. So that's amazing.
Right. Yeah, no, that was a really great project. And that book was a really great example of how a nonfiction author should go about doing the book. I wrote that book in less than 8 weeks. And I went into contract with Simon & Schuster through my agent in early November of 2016, turned in the final manuscript right after Thanksgiving. I took the Thanksgiving holiday to finish it up, and they didn't change a word. And after the CEO of Atria Books read it, she fast-tracked it, and it was published in September 2017. It was from manuscript delivery to publication was like 8 months, a record. Wow. A record. They really liked the book.
Awesome. Well, that's a huge testament to you and thinking of your writing process, especially with that first book, the first time you're writing a book. What were some of the struggles you encountered, maybe that prevented you from even getting started or held you up from finishing that draft?
Not having a really clear idea of what the purpose of my book was, and really trying to think about who am I writing for, and why am I writing this, and what's the purpose of this project? What am I trying to do? I mean, and for the first book, it was a textbook, so I didn't expect to sell a lot of copies, but I wanted something that I could give to law students when I taught my courses in peacemaking and the law that would be an easy reference because there was nothing out there. So I think the most difficult thing in the beginning is really understanding your audience. Why are you writing? And then what you're going to write about. Those are the 3 big questions you got to start with.
Yeah. Now, most of the people who are going to be watching this are entrepreneurs. So they're running their own business. Maybe they're coaches, course creators, consultants, and now they want to write a book. So is it enough to kind of know your audience from your own business, or do you need to look at your readers in a new way?
In my experience, if you want to write a book, anybody can write a book. There are over 100,000 titles published every year, and you can write a book about anything you want, and it'll never go anywhere except your mom will buy a couple of copies probably. And maybe you can hand it out to clients, and that's perfectly okay. But if you want to write a book that is going to have some chance at commercial success, then you need to do a lot of research. And you need to go onto Amazon and you need to look at all your competitors and every title that is about anything close to what you're going to be writing about, and figure out what works, what doesn't work, what are the best sellers, why are they the best sellers, and why are the also rans, and really think about the competition. So if you're an entrepreneur, you know all about doing SWOT analysis and competitive analysis, that you do the same thing as an author, exactly the same thing. And spend some significant time thinking about, is there a niche for this book? Or is this going to be a vanity book that I'm going to use for pushing myself out there in the world? And that's fine too. So be clear about what you're doing.
Now, I self-published my book, but I actually did write a full book proposal because I was going to go the traditional route, and that's a long story. But my point of that was going through that process and really diving into, okay, what is my book about? What are my competitors and what are they writing? That was really helpful for me. So I love that you brought up doing that in-depth competitor research.
Really, really important. The second thing that I would say is that the best books tell stories, even nonfiction. So if you're say you're a consultant or you're a CEO and you've got lots of stories you've accumulated over years of experience, you want to tell those stories because it's the stories that people want to read about. They don't want to read about some didactic academic crap, right? They want to be entertained. So the next biggest lesson I learned is that every book, you're only going to make 3 or 4 points in your book, but every point is going to be illustrated by dozens and dozens and dozens of stories. And so collecting those stories becomes critical. And of course, getting permission to tell the stories, or even if you make the stories up, that's okay, but you've got to be telling stories. And whenever you get writer's block, it's because you're not telling stories.
I love that. How do you draw that balance between, not to hate on any authors, but there's some books out there that kind of just read like a book of testimonials about their clients saying, oh, you're so amazing, and this is the transformation I got. How do you strike that balance between, sharing your story, sharing your clients' stories while still making it a book and making it entertaining, not just a collection of testimonials?
Well, that great question. And I would avoid putting in testimonials at all costs. What I would do is take stories that show how people shifted, maybe not shifted through your work, but shifted through adapting to some concept or overcoming some huge obstacle that one would think you could never do that. How did this guy do that? And use that story as an example of a principle you're trying to explain to the reader. Yeah, I agree with you. There are a lot of books out there where they just grab 200 testimonials, slap them together, put a few words in between, and boom, you got yourself a book. No, that's not going to work. At least
definitely.
Yeah.
Right. No, I appreciate you making that distinction because I think that's really important, especially for the entrepreneurial community. Now, switching directions a little bit to the mindset shifts that helped you, write your books. Did you ever struggle with, perfectionism, procrastination, imposter syndrome, any of those things? No?
I was a traveler for 22 years. Come on, I've got an ego as big as the Grand Canyon, right?
Fair enough. Well, that being said, yeah.
I was an English literature major at Dartmouth College. I, went to law school. All you do as a lawyer is write. I mean, I love being in the courtroom, but that was a very small percentage of my work. The most of it was writing. So you really I learned how to write both academically, scholastic work, as well as legal writing. And so turning to writing prose and nonfiction, the biggest thing for me was lightening up my writing style. So I didn't sound like a lawyer. I didn't sound like a scholar. I sounded like just an everyday person. So I think that's the first step. And for people who haven't done a lot of writing, the most important thing you can do is outline. Outline. Go down to 10 levels if you have to, but don't start writing until you have a complete outline. And I'll tell you something. If you take the time to do that, most people say Harvard outline. I don't want to do that. I haven't done that since the 3rd grade. I said, that's right. But if you do that kind of outlining, the book will write itself. And that's how I could kick out 6,000 or 7,000 words a day because I had a really good detailed outline. And when I got stuck, I just hopped on Google and started searching and finding the information I needed. And then I come back in, throw it in the outline and keep on going.
I love that. Yeah. And I think that's really reassuring for authors, especially nonfiction authors, because they're like, I have so much knowledge in my brain that I can share. So how do I get this out in a way that's going to make sense for me to write, but also make sense for my readers to read? And I think that's a good outline is what that does.
Right. And I will say that I suffer from the same problem. We got so much knowledge and so much experience. How do I share this with people? And that's the problem. You can't share it with all, and don't even try. Your book should have 2, 3, maybe 4 points total. And here's the other trick. People should be able to read the first 3 chapters of your book and not read anything else, understand exactly what you're saying. And the rest of the book just develops and expands on what you've already said in the first 3 chapters, because most people will not read past the first 3 chapters.
Wow.
So
That's a knowledge bomb for anyone who wants to take that. Thank you for that.
right. So that again is why the outline is so important. So your first 3 chapters are really going to summarize all the principal points you're going to make in the book, and then you're going to expand on them in the remaining chapters. And that's again is why being organized and having chapters are having a really detailed outline. And there are lots of great outlining programs out there that you can use that can really help you gather your thoughts. And you can use other information gathering tools like, OneNote and other programs like that, where you see a quote off the web or something, you grab a photograph, grab an idea, and just stuff it into a file where you can then later on organize everything into something that will start to make some coherent sense.
Absolutely. I love this. Doug, thank you so much for sharing all this information with us. This was really helpful.
You're welcome, Jessica. Thanks for having me. And to all of you who are writing, keep at it. You can do it.